All right, everybody. Howdy, howdy. Now, I don't know where I got that from. Every time a student shows up, I say howdy, howdy. Not howdy just one time. I say howdy twice. And I know that part of that comes from my father, but he never did it twice. That's funny, right? Because my father was not Southern. He was not from the West. My father was a Yankee. And but he loved to answer the phone, howdy, or say hello to somebody, howdy. So I've always said howdy, even though I'm not from the howdy. Actually, do you know what? The truth is, I was born in El Paso. Woohoo! Hello, Sean. Peace to you too. Yes, I was born in El Paso and I lived there for about 2 months. And then I moved to Germany. All right, do we have any questions to get started with? All right, I guess you guys just want to hear me talk, huh? Oh my. Things are getting crazy again, right? Piano and ear training. Looks like Sean's in the middle of something. Dallas Gordon. Hello, Dallas. If I start playing trombone, will it mess up my trumpet playing? It could. It depends on what kind of trumpet embouchure you've got. So if you play on what I call an inflammation-based embouchure. Now this is, this is not science. This is my anecdotal experience, okay? I'm not saying that, I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas, a lot of things that I've worked out. That doesn't mean I know everything, right? So what I'm sharing with you is my view on this sort of thing. You can break embouchures into different categories according to different strata, right? And one of those strata you can break them up according to is whether or not the embouchure is inflammation-based or muscle-based. If you play on a muscle-based embouchure, playing on the trombone should not hurt your trumpet playing embouchure all that much. If you play inflammation-based embouchure, playing on the trombone will wipe out all of your inflammation, and the next time you pick up the horn, it will feel like you've never played the trumpet before. Because the lips vibrate so loosely with the trombone, right? It acts like a massage for the lips, and that massage gets all that white blood cell out of your lips, and the swelling goes down. Once again, this is not scientific. I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to sound like I'm scientific. This is just the way I see it. And it's my explanation using what little science I know. That reminds me, hello, Anthony, nice to see you. He says that, Eddie, how are you? I'm fine. He says, I had a trombone teach me trumpet for a little bit. So Anthony probably has a corner on that then, right? So Javier, hello, Javier. Javier says, hello, Eddie and friends, trumpet players. I hope you're doing fine. I am. I hope everyone else is too. I recommend you listen to this great guitarist, uh, Pasquale Grasso. I'll have to check that out. I'm going to put that on my list. Oh, where's my list? I have been having like crazy stuff going on. Let me share with you guys something that I read the other day that cuts to the core of how I operate, right? This guy was talking about the difference between philosophy and ideology. He says that philosophy is when we question, right? When you oh man, I'm forgetting exactly how I said it. I'm just paraphrasing here. You question ideas. You question not just your own ideas, other people's ideas too, but not just other people's ideas, your own ideas. Constantly question, constantly refining, constantly improving your thoughts on how life works. The whole point of philosophy is to uh, do better in this world by getting closer and closer to the truth. The point of ideology is to say this is the truth and everybody else had better be on board or else. And in the trumpet community, there are a bunch of ideologues, right? There are a lot of people that say this is the right way, and anyone that questions that is wrong. And I can't operate that way. I don't think that way, right? I'm not an ideologue. I am a philosopher when it comes, if we're going to split it along that criteria, right? I am on the philosophy side. I'm constantly questioning. I was having a conversation with my son the other day. I was telling him how my method would not be what it is today if I had just had a good idea at the beginning and then stuck to that idea and defended that idea. That's ideology, according to that guy I was reading. That's ideology. I am constantly reevaluating my method. And so now here's the funny thing, right? Is the ideologues think that you're an ideologue if you don't agree with them, because they think that when you don't agree with them, you're defending your point of view. Ha! Huh? How backwards is that? You don't have, if you say someone else is wrong, that doesn't mean you're saying you are right. There are a lot of things in this world, and I'm talking about trumpet stuff. It also applies outside of the trumpet stuff, right? So, there's a lot of stuff that is where people say this is the way it is, and they stick to that and they defend it. And I constantly question all of that. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. It is relevant to trumpet, and I was talking about it because we were talking about something earlier, right? Moving on. Anthony says, I am switching my playing today. First music, then tech stuff and drills, or is that dumb? I just wanted to work on music more today. You know what I do when I'm in that situation? I'll consider, I know this is kind of weird, I'll consider today an extension of yesterday. So I don't need to warm up because, well, first of all, it's not a warm up, it's a routine, right? A warm up is something you can do in 2 or 3 minutes. A routine is something that really should take time. Okay, so I misspoke. I do a quick warm up, maybe, sometimes not even that. And I'll just move on with yesterday's work because I didn't get it done yesterday. So, no, I don't think that's dumb. I think what you can do is just extend your day. Hello, Denny. Denny and Theo. nice to have you guys here. Yeah, very, very nice. Are you guys in Arizona now, or are you in Austin? I'm not. If you don't want to say that, don't say that. I'm just curious. I think you said you were going to be in Austin. Oh, you're in Arizona now. All right. I'm sure Theo's going to have a great time. All right, Anthony says, need to do that because I have a concert coming up soon. And that's also something I've done also. So you guys know that I have 2 versions of the routines, actually now 3. I have the long version, the short version. If I have a concert coming up, I will choose to do the short version of the routine so that I have more time to work on the material for the concert, right? So yes, I'm agreeing with you, Anthony. Yes, so yeah, you're right in alignment. So Anthony says he did his warm up already. And so that's in alignment with what I do. All right, any other questions? I'm trying to remember now why I was talking about philosophy. It had something to do with, because I do question my own. Because we were talking about earlier about my thing about the inflammation-based embouchure, right? That's something I continue to reevaluate. I don't say, my belief is that there are inflammation-based embouchures and muscular embouchures, and I'm going to stick to that belief. I don't operate that way. I constantly question that. Now, some people get upset because when they try to contribute to that conversation and I disagree with them, they think I'm defending this, and I'm not defending that. You just haven't given me a good reason to change my mind. Right? Most of the time it's because it's stuff that I've already considered and ruled out myself. But because I don't agree with them, they think I'm the ideologue. So anyway, that's why I was talking about that. But I think that's very interesting, right? The difference between a philosopher is constantly questioning. You don't just accept stuff. And a ideologue is someone that already has their belief handed to them, and they will defend it to the death, that kind of thing. So, yeah. And obviously the two don't get along. Right? All right. Any other questions? What do you guys have for me today? Anthony says, I'm listening to you with my newfangled earbuds. All right. Wireless. Wow, my wife convinced me to get them. Good. Now I listen to my metronome with no wires. Hey, that's cool. Are you using a phone app for your metronome? Any other questions? Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant to use earbuds just because I have such a, okay, Anthony says he's using a phone app. I was told I was legally deaf. I was told I was legally deaf when I was 20 years old. I was told by the same doctor that by the time I was 60, which was only a couple years from now, that I would not be able to hear anything at all, period. Obviously, he was wrong, but I do have serious hearing loss, and I don't want to make that worse by putting, the only time I wear any headphones at all is when I'm recording. And even then, that bothers me, right? So I try to do as little. Let's put it this way. I try to be efficient with my time when I'm recording because I don't want that sound so so much in my head, you know. I want to protect the hearing I've got. That said, you know, my wife gave me for Christmas last year, right before all the lockdown stuff, right? So I never really got to use it until this year. She gave me these new earplugs. Let me go grab them real quick. I think she bought this separately, but it comes in. They're called ear racers. And I have mine inside this container. They're very small. And the concept is that you're supposed to, this is funny, right? So one's red and one is blue. And I figured out that blue is on the left and red is on the right. Does that sound familiar? Makes sense though, right? So you put these in, and what it's supposed to do is cut down the music volume. So here, let me give you a little bit of background on that. I have some other earplugs that my wife bought me, and she says, "Why are you not wearing these?" I wear them sometimes, right? But she'll ask me, "Why are you not wearing these?" If I come home and my ears are ringing, and she says, "Well, I gave you earplugs. Why are you not wearing them?" But with those earplugs, if I have to take verbal cues on stage, I can't hear what they're saying. And she looked online for these earplugs based on what I was telling her. Their claim to fame is that with these earplugs, the volume of the music goes down, but you can still hear the people speaking. And it actually works. It doesn't work as well as they advertise, but that might be because I already have a hearing loss. I hope that makes sense. I'm sure for someone who's got normal hearing that they could hear better the people who are talking, but it is better than the other earplugs. So I've been wearing these and it's wonderful. Javier says, you mentioned in one of your last videos that one should have music to practice and music to have fun. What are the requirements for music to be fun versus to improve? So here's the thing, right? I have always had a list of songs that I like to play. And now I dropped that out of my practice routine because as I got older, I don't need to have that kind of fun. I know that sounds kind of weird. I don't need to enjoy music so much as I used to. I think being good is the pleasure that I get out of the music. I don't need to, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. So what I used to do is I would have a list of three lists of songs, right? I would have first the list of songs I needed for the gigs. Songs that would never end up on my list, right? A Slow Boat to China. That's a nice song, but why am I going to practice that? But of course I'm going to practice it because it's a gig that, a tune that keeps coming up on the gigs. So then the second list is tunes that I practice because I think they're going to make me a better player. And the tune that I put on that list, just as an example, is Giant Steps. I figured if I could play Giant Steps, that it would make me a better player on all the other songs. And it has indeed worked that way. And then the third list was just songs that I like to play. And so, for example, I'll give you a few names on the songs I like to play list. Breakfast Wine, which was made famous by Bobby Shue. I love that song. It's got those sus chords in it, and it's just a really pretty song. And then another one that I like that I put on that list is, oh, now I can't remember the name. And I'm in the wrong key. I forget the name of the tune. Oh, what's the name of that tune? It's by Keith Jarrett. Why am I not remembering the name of the tune? So anyway, there's a whole list of songs that I like to play. Mostly they're happy songs, right? And yeah, for some reason I like to play them. And like I said, I've dropped that. I didn't drop those songs. I merged them with my other songs. And maybe part of the reason I merged them was because I'm at the latter side of my career, not the beginning of my career. And I think that makes a difference. I really do. And I'm not saying I'm running out of time. I'm saying I've already got experience. And I'm still improving, but I now am in a place where I can approach the horn in a different way. I hope that makes sense. But yes, in the old days, so to answer your question, Javier, you said what are the requirements for music to be fun? It's just music that you like to play. It's really just that simple. So, for example, I like Caballo Viejo, right? Sometimes I'll put Caballo Viejo on just so I can play those flute parts, right? I don't normally play the melody. Right? So, I just enjoy it. It like takes me back to the days, right? Da, 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 da. By the way, I actually got to play a gig with the guy that made that song famous. Roberto Torres, I think is his name, if I remember right. But yes, it's just songs that you like to play. That's it. Where am I? Anthony says, I have a very extreme hearing loss. I wear hearing aids that have amplifiers. When I didn't wear them, people would say, excuse me, I didn't wear them. They would get angry and push me out of their way. Yeah, I'm gonna fight that all the way to the end. I don't want to put that stuff in my ears. And no offense to anyone else that has chosen to go that route. I just don't. Because of the music mostly, I just don't want to mess with that. Javier says, yeah, I listened to Breakfast Wine the other day since you recommended it. Oh, I don't remember recommending it. Yeah, I like that tune a lot. Anthony says, I figured I have something in common with Beethoven. James, hello, James. Shelky B3. It didn't come with a mouthpiece. Bought cheap 3-pack of 3, 5, and 7C. Having pitch issues, going very sharp and low register. Some more than slides can fix. Working lifts, very hard to fix. Maybe the mouthpiece. I'm not so caught up on the sizes for the Shelky. If it was cheap, does that mean it's also old? Because if it is old, it might have a worn mouthpiece receiver, and that could cause the kind of problems that you're talking about. One way to check is to wrap a piece of paper. I don't have my regular B flat. This is my pudgy. Take a piece of paper and one layer around, not so much. You don't have to put like a whole piece of paper around it, just one time around, and place it in there. That should give you a deeper, a more shallow seat. I don't know what, for the last 2 or 3 days I've been saying the opposite words of what I mean. Sorry about that. So this way the mouthpiece doesn't go in as far. Try that and see if the pitch straightens out a little bit. If it does, that means your receiver is worn out. That's what I would start with first. And I'm leaning in that direction because you said you got it real cheap, and a Shelky B3 isn't cheap. So I'm gonna say that. Oh, maybe you're talking about the mouthpiece is cheap. Pardon me for not reading correctly. I apologize for that. One must observe punctuation. Sorry about that. Yeah, Caballo Viejo. Javier says, Caballo Viejo, there are so many songs I have never listened to. So you know what? I don't think if I hadn't played Caballo Viejos for so many years, I don't think I would like it as much. But I played it almost every night from like about 1993 to for at least 10 to 15 years. I played, I say every night that I had a gig. Denny, nice to see you. Maybe we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming out. Dallas says, do you have any tips for making jazz area? So, tips for making jazz area. You know what? Let me tell you what my experience has been with the judging is that the students can't swing. Okay? There were always 2 things that really bothered me as a judge. I say this past tense because I don't think I'll be judging again because of the way they set it up. So the first thing that always bothered me so much is that Ricky Tick swing. Where all the downbeats are short. And it just sounds so bad. It sounds, it doesn't sound like jazz. It sounds like a classical guy trying to play jazz. And in fact, that's probably what that is. So when I hear that, I actually write in my notes, I write Ricky Tick. So that when I'm trying to evaluate as we go, which we're supposed to do as a judge, that I want to remember that this player played Ricky Tick. So that if the person I'm looking at, let's say I give the guy with Ricky Tick a score of 50, and this other guy doesn't sound real good either, but he's not playing Ricky Tick, I'll give him a score of 55 or 57 or maybe even 60. Even though he's not that good, at least he's not Ricky Tick. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is just general overall sloppiness. And here's the thing. Let me tell you this. I've judged Allstate, I think, about 10 times. Not 10. I'm saying words that I'm thinking one word and a different word comes out. I've judged 5 times. And in all 5 times that I judged Allstate, in my opinion, not one single one of those students was qualified to be in the Allstate band. They were all awful, in my opinion. Now, maybe my standards are way too high. But I keep walking away from those judging experiences saying to myself, if just one person would go in there and not have a disaster, they would be first chair Allstate. If just one person would go in there and not sound terrible, you don't even have to be good enough to go to Allstate. You just have to go in there and not sound terrible. And part of that terrible sound is this sloppiness. I mean, people making a mistake in the middle of the measure and backing up to fix it. You know, that's sort of like running someone over, backing up and running them over a second time. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but it's the standards for Allstate are so, and I'm talking about Allstate Jazz. It's an entirely different story for the classical stuff. The standards for Allstate Jazz are just so low that anyone that goes in there and does a good job is going to make it. And you know what part of the problem is? You guys have your mind all fixated on the wrong stuff. You've got your minds fixated on high notes and how fast it goes and stuff like that. If you would stop thinking about that stuff and just go in there and do a good job, stop trying to impress people, and just go in there and do a good job. Don't play Ricky Tick. Learn how to swing. And don't make 1,000 mistakes. Okay, my definition of what do you call it? Of sloppiness is when you make an average of 1 mistake per measure. And when I say mistake, I'm talking about cracked notes. I'm talking about rhythm problems. You know, if you've got a 20 measure piece and a 20 measure etude and you've made 20 mistakes, that's pretty awful. Really. So that's my advice about getting up to the higher levels, is just don't do a bad job. That sounds too simplistic, right? Now, what's amazing about this is sometimes this has happened, and it's been my students in the Allstate, audition as well. And they sound just as bad. I'm walking out of there going, what's going on here? So when I asked them why did they sound so terrible, they said they were nervous. So you could say that what I'm saying is, to make Allstate, or in this case you're asking about area, just don't get nervous and everything should be fine. You know, those guys that I'm talking about that were my students, they're great players. and they get nervous in the audition and throw everything out the window. Right? What other questions do you guys have? All right, James says, yes, bought cheap mouthpiece set to see what size would be best before buying an expensive mouthpiece. I like the idea of wrapping paper around the mouthpiece to change the gap. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing I would do. Just to check to make sure it's not the horn. Now, one thing that bothers me about what you're saying, James, is that it's 3, 5, and 7. If you were my student, we would want to figure out which of those is your right size. And it also bothers me that there's no 1s in there. And I know you bought a cheap packet, right? Are these Bach mouthpieces? Or are they some other brand? By the way, from what I understand, there's very little difference between the 3 and the 5. From what I've written, they're not Bach. So yes, so something to keep in mind is that the different brands don't have the same number. So when I said that there's no difference between 3 and 5, I'm talking with the Bach mouthpieces. Okay. On the Bach sizes 3 and 5, there's all that's changed is the shape of the cup. Almost everything else is the same. Javier says, are the judges rough to the participants in the All-State? I go to law school and some teachers humiliate the students badly. So, in our All-State auditions for the jazz, it's all recordings. It's been recordings always because it's just too expensive to get people to come. You know, the state of Texas is 800 miles wide. Actually, I think it's a little bit more than that. And it's just too expensive to get people to come all to one spot. So yes, it's well, I guess that's not really what I mean. But anyway, so yes, they don't do live auditions. And then for the auditions that are live at the local area, they don't allow the students to see the judges or the judges to see the students. And they're not allowed to do or say anything that would identify the students. Ha! Anthony says, yes, they beat them with a trombone slide if they miss a note. So yeah, they try to make it anonymous and they try to make it fair. I'm not so convinced that it really is fair. I don't think they can, the way it works, they can't say, oh, I don't like this guy, so we're not going to vote for him. They have precautions for that. Yeah, Anthony, we know you're just joking. Yeah, they have precautions built in so that it's not partial to a person, but it can be partial to an ideology. And I think that's just as bad. If they were truly interested in getting the best players, they would have the design of the auditions be much different. But I don't think that ever was the concern. I think that's what they broadcast, is that they have that concern, but it's never been fair. And the only way it could be fair, it would be for them to have an entire overhaul of the system. And I just don't see that happening. Now, one way you can play the system is to play as if you are part of that ideology. And that's one of the things that I help my students do so that they do win contests. I will tell them, this is the way these people think, this is what you have to do. But when you get out and you play in the real world, that's not how it works. I'm making chicken today. Woohoo! Spatchcock chicken with Portuguese spice. Looking forward to that. I don't cook as much as I used to. My wife does most of the cooking. But sometimes I like to give her some time off, and I used to cook a lot. Any other questions? Hello, Cardo. Okay, played on 7C in high school. This is James, but I am sure teeth and jaw have changed since then. Mouthpiece Express will let you try different pieces and then send back ones you don't use. What sizes should I try? Now, ideally, you should find somebody that has one of those Warburton kits so that you could try the whole range. And, I should actually make a video on how to choose a mouthpiece, because I have a very thorough way of choosing a mouthpiece. And I think I mentioned last week that the first thing you want to do is find the rim size and find something that just feels good on your lips. That's the first step. But we don't always have an opportunity to do that with different sizes. The stores, now, what you could do alternatively is order from Bach a 1, a 3, a 7, and a 10.5. And try those out this way, like that. Put it on your lips, see how it feels. And whichever one is the most comfortable of those, that's what we go with first. I know this is just my way of doing it, and a lot of people would strongly disagree. I have to have that approach because of my teeth. And maybe if you don't have messed up teeth like I do, maybe the other way is better, just like picking what famous people use or whatever. I don't know. Because I know that a lot of people will just say 3C is the right mouthpiece for everybody. I don't buy that. And the way I teach with my students, we try different stuff, and we're looking primarily for comfort on the lips. Cardo says, hi, how long should it normally take someone to recover from a taxing session or gig? Well, there's taxing and then there's damage, right? taxing is when you use your muscle to exhaustion. Damage is when you go beyond that and you actually cause harm to your lips. So if all you're doing is exhausting your muscles, then it should only take 24 hours to 48 hours to get all of that back again. Okay? If you cause some kind of damage, then it can take a month, right? I mean, look at what happened to Freddie Hubbard. Now, I've heard conflicting stories about what happened to him, but the bottom line is he messed up his lip. He damaged something somehow. And it took him a long time, I think almost a year or more. Javier says, would you say the be prepared for the worst is a good mentality for performers? Okay, so there's something that I teach close to that. I think you should go into the... Okay, so I see two things that I teach that are close to this. First, I do this thing with my students that I call over-prepare. And what over-prepare is sort of like boot camp. I'm going to throw everything at them to try to mess them up. So that kind of falls in line with what you're saying, be prepared for the worst. And I can agree with that. But also, along those same lines, is I believe you should go into a performance knowing that it's not going to be perfect. That something is going to go wrong. And the reason I say that is because the people who go in with the mentality that says, oh, this is going to be perfect, and then something does go wrong, and they crash and burn. I think it's far, far better to say mistakes happen. It's possible that this is not going to be a perfect performance. So when stuff goes wrong, deal with it. Don't act like it's some big shocker, right? When stuff goes wrong, that's part of what makes a pro a pro. We are constantly dealing with stuff that goes wrong. And sometimes what goes wrong is us, and sometimes it's somebody else. But it's part of the gig. Kato says, I like the 6C Bach mouthpiece. You know, I never heard of a 6C until recently. That's not a mouthpiece that was in circulation until recently, I think. Oh, God. Excuse me. What else? We've got a few minutes left. So next week, I've asked another trumpet player in town to come and join us. We'll probably sit on the sofa or something, or maybe set up chairs or something. Do it on the laptop. Javier says, pursuing for perfection can make you uptight, I guess. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Cardo says, I believe Lee Morgan played the 6C too. Okay, so that's something I've never heard of. Hello, Mr. Walker. Nice to see you again. Any other questions? Dallas says, how long should I practice in per day? I'm assuming you're asking per day. If you want to make all state, it should be 2 hours a day. That's what I tell my students. If you want to make all state, it should be 2 hours a day. If you don't want to make all state, then you can scale it down from there. But that said, you know, I have seen in my career many people who practiced a lot and still played terrible. The time you spend practicing doesn't help if you don't know how to practice. And that's a very sad but very realistic truth. Practicing is an art. And if you don't learn, you know, some of my students, they're surprised, right? Because at a certain point in the lessons, they find out that what they're really learning in the lessons is how to practice. And it turns out it takes so much more time and so much more effort and so much more, there's so much more involved with learning how to practice than it is to learn how to play the trumpet. And a lot of people just don't know that. Cardo says, I guess it's about quality. You know, I wouldn't use that word. Yes, quality is important, but you can't achieve quality without proper procedure. If you're not practicing properly, you cannot achieve quality practice. You cannot achieve quality performance. It's about what do you do in what order and how, you know, procedure. It's all about procedure. James says, can you recommend any other jazz players similar to Chet Baker? I like his style and approach to solos. They seem more melodic to me. So I'm real bad with names. There's a West Coast player, Shorty Rogers, I think. I'm thinking Shorty Rogers is kind of sort of the same style. Now, he's not going to sound exactly like Chet Baker because nobody sounds exactly like Chet Baker. But yes, I think that's who I'm thinking of. Let me do a search on Shorty Rogers. Yes, so one of the original West Coast jazz guys. So that's the first thing that comes to the top of my mind. So that's not a name I know. Tony Fuchella. That's not a name I know. I'll have to look that up. It doesn't mean that so that's what I've been trying to tell you guys. We started with a short discussion about philosophy. I have never claimed to know everything. Even though people get bent out of shape and accuse me of that, they've always been wrong. They only say that when I disagree with them, right? And if I disagree with them, they automatically assume what I'm saying is that I know everything. I just think they're wrong. Javier says, what horn brand would you pick, Getson, Bend, or Busher? Out of those three, I would get a Getson. If I had to choose, if someone was just gonna give me one, but I had to pick, I would get the Gibson. So why would I do that? I don't know. All the Gibsons I've ever heard have had an awesome sound. Awesome sounding instruments. I think if I had not gotten so connected to Bach, and when I say connected, I mean like the sound I hear in my ears for most work. Don't get me wrong, this sound, I love the way this horn sounds. That's just not appropriate for everything, and I'm always hesitant to say that because you know how I am. People think I'm like putting them down or something. I'm not putting this horn down. I love this horn, but I can't hear myself playing this on a big band gig. Does that make sense? I mean, this is what I see myself playing in an intimate context. You know? I love that song. But yes, to me, that kind of tune sounds beautiful on here. But in a more, let's say, aggressive context, this horn, I don't hear that. So, and the sound I hear in those contexts is Bach. So if it wasn't that, I would probably be a bench player. Yes, so James says thanks. I will look Shorty and Tony up. And thank you, Cardo, for recommending Tony. Papa Walker says, I just got a Getson field trumpet for playing taps. You know what? I want to get a real bugle. I really want to get, I heard someone playing, so I have a bugle. It's actually, you can see it right here. And it is a real bugle. It's Army regulated. But I heard somebody with a real bugle, I mean like a modern bugle from Canstool, and I'm like, you know, I'm almost embarrassed now to play this. It's nice, but it doesn't. Yeah. So yeah, I want to get one of those Canstool bugles because it sounds so gorgeous. It sounds heavenly, really. That's the word I would use to describe it, is heavenly. This sounds like a cow horn in comparison. Anthony says, I had a Getson student trumpet my grandpa bought me. It played really well for a student horn. Then the mover stole it from me when I moved. Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. All right, guys, we have 1 minute. Maybe enough time for 1 or 2 questions. Get them in now before we go. Like I said, next week I've invited someone to join us. And it won't be an interview, okay? It's not an interview. What it is just another, remember, philosophy, not ideology. And I just wanted to broaden the influence a little bit and just have more to bounce You know, I respect this guy a lot because his name is Ed. No, I'm kidding. Um, if his name's Ed and he plays trumpet, it can't be all that bad, right? Anthony says, thank you for your time. Have a great weekend. You're welcome, Anthony. It's always great to see you guys. I guess we missed Gabrielle this week. Yeah. All right. Well, very good, everyone. It's nice to see you always. Like I said, be looking for a new component to these interviews next week. Javier says, cool, Eddie. Looking forward to next week. Everybody have a good weekend and take care. All right. Well, God bless you guys. Have a great week and have a good weekend. And we'll see you next time. All right. Bye.